When Congress defunded public media, thousands of you stepped up, increasing your monthly gift to help us survive year one without federal funding. We made it, but that loss isn't going away. So if you haven't increased your monthly contribution yet, now's the time. And if you're not a sustaining member, join us. A monthly gift to Boise State Public Radio gives us the steady, reliable support we need for year two and beyond. Choose the support tab at boisestatepublicradio.org.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Samantha Wright filling in for Jim Gaudette. It's Idaho Matters. Depending on who's doing the counting, between 30 and 60 million buffalo used to call this landscape home before settlers came west and shot most of them. By 1890, only around 1,000 buffalo were left, and it's only been in the last few years that conservation efforts have really tried to bring these iconic mammals back to the West. A new exhibit is taking a comprehensive look at the history, the biology, and even the art that the buffalo inspired. It's called Buffalo Nation, and it includes 6 spotlight exhibits at the Buffalo Bills Center of the West in Cody, Wyoming. Joining us now is Rebecca West, director of the Buffalo Bills Center of the West and at Buffalo Nation. Thanks for being here today, Rebecca. Nice to have you.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be on air.
Okay, tell us about the exhibit and why the center wanted to put this all together.
Right. Well, the exhibit started in concept a couple of years ago. Like many other institutions, we were preparing for America's 250. And we like to try to be a bit non-traditional. Museums, a lot of times, approach some of these projects looking at history in a chronological way. And certainly we have 5 different museums with different collections focus and a research library. But we thought if we wanted to look at America's birth and America's history differently from our perspective as a place in the West, how would we do that? And how can we also take this well into the future? So we started thinking about how it might be done through a different lens. And we started focusing on looking at history through the perspective of the American bison. Now, of course, a lot of people, when we started planning this, had already seen Ken Burns' documentary on the American bison, which was incredible, a great work. But we challenged ourselves and said, all right, Ken Burns did an amazing job, but where can we pick up with the story where Ken Burns left off? So that's how we started with the concept. And we wanted it to be totally immersive, so not just a special exhibition in one area. We opened up the spotlight exhibits on January 1st of this year as a way to start the year out right. And you're not only immersed when you come in the building with massive screens of audiovisual of grazing bison, but every single gallery has the presence of the bison in it. And then the special exhibition downstairs is going to surround people not only with collections objects, storytellers, hands-on experiences, but it's also going to surround people with knowledge. So that's the inspiration, and that opens up on August 22nd to the public. And that's how we got started with this whole big project, which, by the way, it goes all the way through this year, 2026, but it extends into 2027. Because we feel like the subject matter and the themes are really timeless, talking about the future of the American bison too.
Well, as you mentioned, this is like several little exhibits, and I won't say little, but several exhibits packaged all together. History, buffalo hides, you've got fine art. Yeah. Okay, so start with the McCracken Research Library. What are folks learning there?
Right. And before I talk about the McCracken, just to set the stage, if people haven't been to the Buffalo Bills Center of the West, I know Cody is a small town. We're about 12,000 people. We're about 50 miles from Yellowstone Park. And people hear our name and they're often like, okay, it's just some small organization. So we actually have over 150,000 square feet of exhibit space, which, you're talking like football fields worth of things to see. So as part of that, the McCracken Research Library, that is our wonderful archive of course, books, but we have close to 100,000 different digitized photos as part of that collection. So when people go to the McCracken Research Library, they're going to see historic images of bison. It'll take you through time traveling through the early days of Yellowstone Park, but even further back to when the hide hunters and the railroad workers were really having a big part in the massive decline of the buffalo populations. And of course, we have historic photos too from the indigenous tribes who are really relying on the buffalo for every single aspect of their life. So it's a lovely, sublime exhibit down there, a lot of black and white photos, historic books, rare books, and that really sets the stage for the knowledge base of Buffalo Nation.
Okay, so let's head to the Plains Indian Museum. You've got everything there from a mural to a drum to some info on some of the restoration programs. It's quite a lot.
It is, it is. And this is one of the pivotal areas, I would say, of the exhibition because you can't talk about the bison without talking about the indigenous people of the plains. We know that the prehistoric bison was here long before people were here really on the plains. However, indigenous people and bison simply cannot be separated in terms of where we are here in the West. The histories are intertwined. There was a very strong spiritual association with the buffalo. Indigenous people used respectfully the buffalo for everything from food to clothing to tools. And what's really interesting is the buffalo is so prominent in the art. Everything from early 18th, 19th century. And then, of course, the indigenous cultures don't stop with the turn of the century. And in fact, today, as you mentioned, there are incredible efforts to really have a resurgence and bring back these bison populations. And that's being done on Wind River with the Wind River Intertribal Buffalo Initiative. And they're doing a beautiful job down there of bringing back the herds, making sure that they're genetically diverse, but also bringing new knowledge, or it's actually not new knowledge, it's traditional knowledge to new generations of tribal members for the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho and Wind River. And a lot of these efforts are happening around the Great Plains and around the United States. But our collections are so rich in bison material with the Plains Indian Museum, and it's really a beautiful relationship that indigenous people have had for tens of thousands of years with the bison. And the good news is it's still going today.
Okay, so take us into the art. There's an awful lot of art inspired by the buffalo. You've got quite a bit of it at the Whitney Western Art Museum.
Yes, and there sure is a lot of great art with bison as the subject matter. And it really started, if you're going to talk about Euro-American art, it really started with what we call the explorer artists. So you have Catlin and Bodmer and Alfred Jacob Miller, and they have these really fascinating depictions of this very strange animal because Europeans had not, and Americans had largely not seen what the American bison looked like. So you have these wonderful paintings and drawings of bison, and we even have a little bit of fun with it too, because sometimes the depictions that were brought back by the explorer artists were very exaggerated, and they don't actually look exactly like bison do today. But then as you get closer to into the mid 1800s and closer to the turn of the century, the bison was seen as a powerful symbol in art. It appears in everything from just passive landscapes to different portraits. And then, of course, today, our Whitney Western Art Museum, it goes all the way through contemporary art. And the buffalo is still very much part of the landscape and part of the art as well. Sculptors who are well known, like Charlie Russell and Frederick Remington, love depicting the bison. So, of course, we have bronzes and different sculptures with the bison as well. So, pick the era, pick the genre. We've got it. And it's on exhibit and part of the spotlight exhibits, but there'll be works that are featured in Buffalo Nation for the big exhibit too. And it's really a lot of fun to explore those different eras.
We're speaking with Rebecca West, director of the Buffalo Bill Center of the West and the exhibit Buffalo Nation. This one kind of surprised me, and I think we don't always talk about it, but you've got to look at some of the guns that were part of the decline of the buffalo at the Cody Firearms Museum. Can you talk about that? And you have Theodore Roosevelt's rifle as well. I thought that was...
Yes.
Yeah.
And, absolutely. And firearms, people sometimes think of that as an entirely separate collection. And they're like, well, what do firearms have to do with the buffalo? Well, a couple things. If you really look at firearms as part of the technology that shaped the American West, that's one of the main takeaways at the Cody Firearms Museum. We do also explore how this technology did play a part in the hunting and the decline and near extinction of the buffalo. And really what it was too, it was a really bad perfect storm of westward expansion. We had the introduction of cows and sheep and different animals that really took over the grazing habitat of the buffalo. But you also have just massive and fast historical change, fighting over land, so removal of indigenous people, which led to the intentional killing of buffalo with firearms. So we look at what types of firearms were used with the hunting. We also look at the fact that indigenous people were also using firearms, not just the traditional bows and arrows, to hunt buffalo as well. So when you look at all of these different factors, combined with the fact that we started to get into the Industrial Revolution, and the buffalo hides were great to use for the belts that were in the factories, largely on the East Coast, you had this species that was really seeing the brunt of new technologies, including firearms. You mentioned Teddy Roosevelt. And of course, there's a connection there too. Roosevelt was integral, of course, in creating Yellowstone National Park as a conservationist, but he was also a hunter. So you have a lot of these different histories intertwining, and they certainly do have one common thing, which is the firearms were definitely part of this change.
Okay, I've got about a minute left.
Okay.
And this is a tough question to get to in a minute. What do you hope people take away from this exhibit?
Well, I want them to understand that this exhibit, it's really, we say it's built for this moment. So we're not just looking at past history, we're looking at how we can learn from what has happened with the American bison, how it's been celebrated, it's been loved, it's part of our popular culture right now, but what we can learn from our relationship with the bison. And it teaches us a lot about what it holds, what the future holds for the buffalo, but also what is our role as humans in terms of the future of the buffalo. It also speaks a lot about the future of our country and our relationship too with the land and the ecosystems. So it's very exciting. We hope people will come and have an immersive experience. Come to Cody and see the Buffalo Bill Center of the West, if not for Buffalo Nation, for the other 5 museums in the library as well.
All right. We've been speaking with Rebecca West, director of the Buffalo Bill Center of the West and the exhibit Buffalo Nation.
And thanks so much for listening to Idaho Matters from Boise State Public Radio. Do you have thoughts about today's episode? Make sure you email us at idahomatters@boisestate.edu or reach out on our socials. Find this and other Boise State Public Radio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.
Each story you hear on Planet Money starts with a question. What happens if we refund tariffs? Why are groceries so expensive? At NPR, we stand for your right to be curious because the forces shaping our world can be hard to see. Follow NPR's Planet Money wherever you get your podcasts and start seeing how the economy really works.